understandably, we get quite a lot of inquiries on whether various river sections are going to be fishable. Do you think it would be worth us just taking people through the way we use the river gauges so that people can avoid wasted journeys to our trips?
Yeah, certainly, yeah. From what I sort of see, some of these sort of sites can be quite confusing. As the first time you go on there, you get sort of bombarded with so many different places and that. But once you've actually been on there a couple of times and you've sort of got to gist of it, of the certain places you want to be looking at, once you've been on there a few times, it's pretty straightforward. So, yeah, as you say, you can get onto these sites, and before you even step foot out the front door, you can look at these river conditions from the comfort of your living room. So,
and I think once you know what to look for at certain points, rivers become fishable or unfishable. You can avoid a wasted journey.
Exactly that. Yeah.
As we're about to find out, I'm not very technically adept, but if I can use this technology on my iPad and my iPhone, then almost anybody can.
Yeah.
So let's start off with the basics. The Thames catchment. Water flows downhill. That's the kind of first thing. So it's going to be coming from up in the Cotswolds, up in the headwaters of the Loddon and the Kennet. And so put up a map here of the Thames catchment. We've got the Kennet obviously to the west and its tributaries. We've got the Loddon coming in from the south and its tributaries. And then very importantly, to work out whether our stretches of the river around between Oxford and Reading are going to be fishable, you also need to be aware of what's happening in these really important Thames tributaries further upstream, the Tame, the Cherwell, the Windrush, the Evenlode, because what's happening in those tribs is clearly going to affect them.
Yeah, massive impact, yeah.
So that's the first thing. So let's just move on specifically, say, to the Loddon catchment. It's a spate river, it's not a chalk stream, which means it comes up and floods much quicker. But of course the Loddon's quite interesting because the left hand, the western end of the Loddon, does rise in the chalk. And that's the bit that goes through Stratfield Say. But then you've got the right-hand spur here, the River Blackwater. That's a very, very spatey river. As we know, Jim, that can rise, it's only and fall within 24 hours.
Yeah, that's it, yeah. So it's a place to be and this is the thing we're sort of here explaining to you guys, is that this is the sort of place where when you've looked on your maps for the morning, you fancy a day's fishing, that you can go on and go, the River Blackwater's dropped overnight, so it gives you that chance to get down there with actually outgoing travelling.
Yeah,
it's easy as that.
Blackwater can be dropping when the main Thames is rising.
Yeah, exactly that.
And of course the other tributary of the Loddon is the Whitewater, which is actually a chalk stream, and that behaves totally differently. I mean, unfortunately we haven't got any fishing on that. And then of course our stretch is further down. So looking at what's happening to the tributaries, very, very important. Yeah. And Loddon in particular, you need to catch it right.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, so let's look at the Kennet. Kennet's a bit more predictable. It's a chalk stream for the bulk of its route, certainly all the way down to the confluence with the Emborn. Now the Emborn comes in at Aldermaston, and the Emborn, as you know, as a fishery officer, brings a lot more colour into the river than you'll necessarily get from these other little tributaries further upstream, like the Lambourne and the Dun.
Yep.
I mean, they're pure chalk.
Yeah, straight coming off the chalk, nice clean fresh water. But as you say, as soon as you get down to the Emborn and that, you're getting a lot of more sediment coming in, so the water quality changes massively the further you get down the Kennet system.
And that of course affects the coloration in the canal as well. So the canal upstream, because the canal flows in and out of the Kennet, as we know, from Hampstead Marshall downstream, so the canal is going to be a lot more coloured below where the Emborn comes in than above where the Emborn comes in.
Certainly is, yeah.
In terms of the system. So that's basically the looking at the Thames, looking at the Loddon, and looking at the Kennet, and looking at those trips. So let's just move on to the gauges that people need to be aware about, and I would strongly recommend bookmarking and putting on the home screen.
Yeah.
So the first one and the most obvious one to have up is this one here, the Environment Agency one. It's not an app, but you can bookmark it. So if you just go onto the gov.uk and type in check for flooding and river levels, you can put in any river you want, and then you can save those particular gauges. So just for the sake of argument, let's put the Kennet in, because we are Reading District. Push the search button there, Kennet comes up, River Kennet again. See that, I can use computers. There aren't that many gauges on the Kennet, but obviously the ones that interest us are what's happening at Newbury, and I usually say that one, and obviously what's happening down at Calcott. And as you can see, today, March the 4th, it was heading into the flood zone, just starting to drop off now.
Yep.
And that's what's happening to the Kennet. So we can probably predict that the Kennet in 2 or 3 days' time is going to be a lot calmer and fishing we've got some decent fishing potential. Yeah,
certainly is. Yep.
But then, of course, you might want to look at other rivers around the system, and I'm giving away my fishing secrets here. Let's have a look, for example, at what's happening to the Loddon now. So I keep the gauge there at Arborfield Bridge. Now, you don't really want to be fishing the Loddon much above 0.8.
Yeah.
So I would say at this stage, the Loddon is not really worth. This is probably not even for barbel, certainly not for chub.
Yep.
But what's the Loddon going to be like, say, in 2 or 3 days' time when I've got a day's fishing? Well, again, we come back to the old tributaries. What are the tributaries doing? So let's have a look at the Blackwater, because that's the thing that impacts on the Loddon a lot. Look at the Blackwater. Look, see how that's dropped off?
Yeah, a massive drop there.
As you were saying, Jim, it's very quick to rise, the Blackwater, but very quick to fall.
Yeah.
So it's fishable from about 1.4, 1.2 down on the Blackwater?
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, anywhere around sort of that 1.2 to 1.4 is really good conditions to be out on the Blackwater.
So really tomorrow, the Blackwater is probably, the Loddon won't be, but the Blackwater is likely to be fishable.
Yeah,
tomorrow.
somewhere up on the Blackwater there'll be a good day's fishing to be had.
Okay, so let's take this through to the Thames. So we're going to be slightly concerned at the moment about the Thames. It's going to be pretty high. So let's just pick. Let's have a look at the Thames that's down this way, somewhere near us. Benson. Okay, here's Benson. So it's over the flood level. She is dropping off.
Yep.
Let's say I'm planning a trip this weekend. I want to know about the Thames. What's she likely to be doing? Well, a good thing to do is to check the tribs. So this is why I put in the River Tame. So upstream at Wallingford is the River Tame, Little Spate River. What's the Tame doing? Oh dear, the Tame was dropping. That last bit of rain put the Tame
Now it's
up.
rising again. Yep.
Not desperate though, not desperate. And you don't just have to rely on the Tame. We could have a check. Let's have a check for one of the other tribs. Let's have a look at the even load. If you can spot it before me with your young eyes, that would be good. Even load at
That
Shipton.
one
There
there.
we go. Now, that's the tributary upstream of the Thames. See? Even load's starting to drop. So I reckon 4 or 5 days' time,
The Thames will be getting there.
yeah,
Certainly will, yeah.
So very, very easy to do. It's just a question of understanding how the tributaries relate to the main river, having the technology, having it saved conveniently on your iPhone or on your iPad. But whilst all other rivers in the country are very, very dependent on river levels, the Thames has got one other factor, and that is it's a very, very heavily managed waterway.
Yep.
So it's also about flow. But the technology won't let us down, because there is this wonderful little thing called the Shoot Hill Gauge Map.
Yeah.
So again, not an app, but so just Google Shoot Hill Gauge Map and up it'll come, and then save it. And there are 3 flow gauges, and I'll show you this one at Sutton Courtenay, which is upstream of Wallingford. So it gives you the level, as you can see there, Jim, just in the flood zone, yeah? But look, it gives you flow at cubic metres per second. And what can really ruin a day's fishing on the Thames is when they throw open the lock gates.
Exactly that.
So you're looking for them to shut. Now, you really want this figure down below about 80.
Yes.
Preferably 70 or 60. But it's moving in the right direction. But there are a range of other flow gauges that you can get on the Thames. One's at Farmore, which is very useful for our stretch at Northmoor, and the other one's down at Reading.
Yes.
So there are 3 flow gauges: Sutton Courtenay, Reading, and Farmore. Again, you just type them into the browser here. I'll just do it. It'll tell you what's going on, so we can see what's happening at Farmore. So this is the speed of the river, because there's not a lot of point in getting to a river that's the right height, but actually unfishable. So Farmore's been dropping, and as you can see, unfortunately, up to 63, really needs to be around between 30 and 40.
Yeah, certainly does, yep.
Yeah, pushing through too far. So I think that really concludes all that people need to know. I mean, there are other gauges about temperature and all the rest of it, but what you've got there is the ability to know how high your river is and how fast it's flowing.
Yep.
And I'd like to think that would help people avoid a wasted day and
yeah, certainly
more
will.
fish on the bank.
Yeah, and another thing for future purposes, if you've sort of looked at these gauges before you've gone fishing, and you've seen that the Thames is at a flow of sort of 65 to 70 that day, and you've had an exceptional day's fishing, well, keep that one pinned in your head, because next season, when you're there and you're debating that couple of days you've got off work and you want to go fishing, if you know that Thames is around 60 to 70, then you know they are the times to be out there. And yeah, it can basically just give you that little bit of an edge before you get in there. And again, I look at the Thames gauges all the time, and I can take one look at the gauge and know if I'm going to have a good day's fishing or not. So yeah, get that into your heads and you'll be fine.
Thanks very much for that, Jim. I hope that's useful.